Hello, this is the compliance update for the first week in November in South Dakota. South Dakota medical cannabis establishment application deadline is coming up. South Dakota's new medical marijuana industry reaches an important milestone next week. Monday is the deadline for people who want to apply to operate a medical cannabis business in communities with limits on the number of medical marijuana establishments. South Dakota voters approved legalizing medical marijuana on Election Day last November, almost 1 year to the day of Monday's application deadline for medical cannabis establishments. Such operations include cultivator, manufacturer, dispensary, and testing facilities. The Department of Health released the application forms this past Monday. There is a non-refundable $5,000 application fee, so that would weed out only those who are serious about starting a medical cannabis business in South Dakota. The application will not be considered complete until the money is received. Processing of the application may take up to 90 days. Applicants also have to provide details about their production plans, including the number of plants being cultivated, building specs, and the types of chemicals that would be used. If someone else owns the property, that person would have to give consent for its use as a medical cannabis facility. At least one of the main backers of the operation has to be a resident of South Dakota, and all of them need to undergo a criminal background check. In Michigan, a message from the MRA Enforcement Director regarding Delta 8. Delta 8 products are not permitted for sale in any retail location, including MRA licensed locations, and must not be entered into the statewide monitoring system. At this time, the only permissible handling of Delta 8 products is by way of MRA-approved research and development. Any MRA-licensed location that currently has Delta 8 products in their inventory must destroy the products or they will be subject to MRA disciplinary actions. Any questions should be directed to mra-enforcement@michigan.gov. Another update in Michigan. Michigan lawmakers approve bills to restrict medical marijuana cultivation by caregivers. Several bills that changed the state's 2008 voter-approved Michigan Medical Marijuana Act and caregiver program moved out of committee Tuesday and are headed to the House floor. House Bills 5300 through 5302, known as the Michigan Cannabis Safety Act, tighten rules for caregivers related to plant allowances, product testing, and where they can grow medical cannabis. The new legislation would create a new specialty medical marijuana grower license for caregivers that includes a variety of regulations. The House of Representatives Regulatory Reform Committee approved House Bills 5300 through 5302 and 5319 through 5321, with most passing 10-2 and a few members abstaining. The committee adopted last-minute changes to House Bill 5300 and 5301 before the vote, adding language that allows unlicensed caregivers to serve up to 5 patients from their primary residence. However, unlicensed caregivers could only grow 24 cannabis plants at their home. Hello, this is the compliance update for the second week of November in Ohio. Board of Pharmacy begins accepting provisional dispensary license applications. The Board of Pharmacy is now accepting applications for provisional medical marijuana dispensary licenses. The application period will close at 2 p.m. on November 18th, 2021. In Michigan, modifications to state law regarding eligibility for medical marijuana licenses. Governor Whitmer signed into law House Bill 4295, which amends the Medical Marijuana Facilities Licensing Act to specify the following. Individuals who have been convicted of certain marijuana-related felony or misdemeanor offenses are eligible for a marijuana state operating license unless the felony involved the distribution of cannabis to a minor. Applicants who are elected officers or employees of a federally recognized Indian tribe or elected precinct delegates are eligible for a cannabis state operating license. The spouse of a person who applied for a cannabis state operating license is eligible for licensure, unless the spouse's position created a conflict of interest, was within the MRA, or a state federal regulatory body making decisions regarding medical cannabis. The MRA may no longer consider the integrity, moral character, reputation, or personal probity of an applicant in evaluating eligibility for licensure. HB 4295 also prohibits the MRA from evaluating an applicant's suitability for a cannabis state operating license based on whether he or she had committed cannabis-related offenses, with the exception of felonies involving the distribution of cannabis to a minor. This law takes effect immediately. In Missouri, promotion events are allowed under proposed Missouri medical cannabis rules. Missouri officials have proposed new medical cannabis industry rules that would allow them to hold promotional events and publicize price discounts, backtracking on a previous directive prohibiting promotional activities. Under the proposal, any promotional activities would be required to include a disclaimer that reads, "Medical decisions should not be made based on advertising. Consult a physician on the benefits and risks of particular medical marijuana products." In a statement last week, the Missouri Medical Cannabis Trade Association said medical cannabis patients were harmed by the former rule. Andrew Mullins, the organization's executive director, told the news leader that it is absolutely essential that patients have accurate, timely information and education that allows them to make good health decisions, and that's exactly what this rule rewrite will allow them to do. One final update for today, a federal update. The GOP-led federal legalization bill signals congressional shift. A federal cannabis legalization bill is being circulated by Republican members of Congress in preparation for its official filing, expected later this month. The 116-page State Reform Act, led by Representative Nancy Mace, reportedly seeks to deschedule cannabis at the federal level and allot regulatory powers across multiple federal agencies. Under the proposal, the U.S. Treasury Department's Alcohol and Tobacco, Tax and Trade Bureau would be tasked with regulating interstate cannabis commerce, while raw cannabis materials would be regulated by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. The FDA's authority, meanwhile, would be limited to determining serving sizes and designating state medical cannabis products. The FDA would also still be in charge of regulating cannabis-based pharmaceuticals. The proposal carries a federal 3.75% excise tax on cannabis sales, revenue from which would be dedicated to supporting community re-entry, law enforcement, and financial aid through the Federal Small Business Administration. The bill also includes expungement provisions for certain federal nonviolent cannabis crimes, but does not appear to carry further justice reforms like social equity considerations, which puts it at odds with the other congressional legalization proposals. This is the compliance update for the third week in November in Ohio. Ohio senators mulling major revisions to medical marijuana system. Ohio senators have filed legislation that represents a broad revision of the state's medical marijuana system. Among the changes is language expanding access to the drug if a physician, quote, reasonably believes their patient's symptoms would be relieved or they would be otherwise benefit from cannabis. It's a potentially massive expansion of eligibility for patients after years of piecemeal additions to the list of qualifying conditions. But for the bill's sponsor, Senator Steve Huffman, a streamlined regulatory structure is the measure's primary aim. The biggest example is the Department of Pharmacy regulates dispensaries, and the Department of Commerce regulates cultivators. So if you own one of each, you have to go to each different agency to make business decisions. He notes the Department of Pharmacy will still manage a database of prescriptions through the Ohio Automated Rx Reporting System, or OARRS, but most oversight will fall under the purview of a new division of marijuana control housed in the Commerce Department. Huffman also believes the measure will encourage the department to offer more licenses as the market grows and put pressure on license holders to bring product to market rapidly. In Michigan, fiscal year 2022 medical marijuana operation and oversight grants have been issued. The MRA recently announced that the medical marijuana operation and oversight grant application for fiscal year 2022 is available. Operation and oversight grants are to be distributed at the county level for education, communication, and outreach regarding the 2008 Michigan Medical Marijuana Act. The Michigan legislature has appropriated a total of $3 million for the 2022 medical marijuana operation and oversight grants. As in years past, these grants may not be used for law enforcement purposes. The amount of funds available to each county is calculated based on the number of marijuana registry ID cards issued or renewed in the county as of September 30th, 2021. This is the compliance update for the fourth week of November in Michigan. Michigan recalls cannabis products tested by Viridis Labs over 3 months. The Michigan Marijuana Regulatory Agency, or the MRA, has issued a recall for products tested over the past 3 months by Viridis Laboratories and Viridis North. Affecting 400 retail locations around the state, the agency announced the recall after noticing, quote, inaccurate and or unreliable results. Regulators said that everything except for vape cartridges, live resin products, and distillates tested between August 10th and November 16th could be dangerous, with patients who are immunocompromised or with lung diseases facing the greatest potential for harm. The agency asks consumers to be wary of lung infections caused by mold, the report says. The MRA wants consumers to return covered products to the point of purchase, and stores are encouraged to destroy recalled products and provide proof of the destruction or return the products to the original producer. Viridis Labs says they are fully cooperating with the agency. Another update in Michigan. The MRA issues a bulletin explaining the 3 options for retesting products. The intent of the bulletin is to provide additional information to assist licensees with retesting products subject to the November 17, 2021 recall. The licensee from which the product originated is permitted to take all of the product back to its physical location, combine the child packages together for resampling, and then retest accordingly. The sales location may send the packages out for testing. These locations have been granted the ability to create test samples. On site, the laboratory should still sample 0.5% of the present batch. If the licensee from which the product originated still has product on site, the laboratory may go to the source and obtain a sample that is representative of 0.5% of the original harvest batch weight. Once test results are entered, the results will trickle down to all sales locations. In Illinois, medical cannabis retailers to follow HIPAA guidelines in Illinois. New guidance in Illinois published by the Department of Financial and Professional Regulation requires medical and co-located dispensaries in the state to protect patient information in accordance with the privacy and security rules set out in the Federal Health Information Portability and Accountability Act, or HIPAA, statute and attendant regulations. Under the guidance, dispensaries that sell medical cannabis, including those with adult use licenses, must complete a HIPAA security risk assessment by December 1st. That risk analysis includes identifying areas of high security risk for electronic protected health information, an evaluation of the likelihood and impact of the risks, implementation of security measures to address the risks, and documentation of the measures and their rationale. Among other regulations, HIPAA requires that covered medical providers complete initial and then recurring assessments of risks to their IT infrastructure and undertake certain physical, administrative, and technical safeguards to safeguard patient information.